Welcome. Today we want to talk about how the new DEI mandates that have come from Washington might affect career relaunchers and women in general in private industry. We kind of know how they'll affect people who are working GSA jobs, but what about people who are working at local companies or national
Right.
companies?
There's lots of changes that are happening. And so this is a forecast of how it could potentially impact our audience.
Right.
So let's just start with a few questions.
Sure.
I think that's a good way to get at the meat of this. So we don't know for sure how the mandate will affect working in private industry yet, right? But how can we predict?
Sure. I mean, we've kind of seen some already. I mean, immediately after the mandates were announced, we saw some major employers making changes. I mean, big notable employers like Target and Walmart and McDonald's and so across industries. So we're seeing companies respond by dialing back or canceling their DEI initiatives. So let's just talk about what it is. A good diversity, equity, and inclusion.
That's the key.
Yeah, a good one. Yeah. A good one is looking at making their employee workforce look more like their customers. And the biggest benefit to that is that if you have voices within your organization that better reflect the people you're trying to sell your product to, the more likely you're going to be able to reach those people in that audience, right? So the spirit of DEI is all good. I think the other thing we can all recognize is that, I mean, women have only had the right to vote for 100 years. We've only had the right to get a credit card for like 40 years. So we have been at a disadvantage. We've only had reproductive control for 50 years.
Right.
So for many, many years, women didn't have a place in white collar jobs, even less so for people of color. So the idea of DE&I is to give them an opportunity to come in.
Right.
Where I think, this is just my opinion, where a lot of DE&I initiatives failed is that they focused only on the in process. Let's get as many women and people of color in here. And then they did nothing to support and develop them.
Right.
Mentor them.
Right.
Give them opportunities to grow so they could succeed and advance.
Look at their unique, circumstances and situations and provide for them.
Right.
I think there was maybe some effort towards that, but
And I speak in general.
And there are some, I was going to say,
some
there are a
companies
lot of people that are doing a really good
have
job.
rocked it, right? But because of that one piece of it, it became a bad word. I mean, if you think of these words, diversity, equity, inclusion, I mean, these are like good things. They're certainly innocuous, but they became bad words. So we have seen companies scale back already or cancel their initiatives. And so the impact will be, especially for some of these major employers, and we'll see what happens with the smaller ones, that what little edge you might have for being female, what little edge you might have for being older will no longer be.
Right.
And that is something you need to consider.
Right. And we'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But let's address this next question. Are there any industries where there may be less of an effect when it comes to this?
Yes. So let's talk about, I mean, if you think about the places where women, we're going to talk about women because that's our expertise, where women are underrepresented. It's tech and financial services and to a lesser degree, or maybe even equal, manufacturing. So those are fields that were technically male. So early on, as women were being welcomed into the workplace, into the professional workplace in the later 70s, 80s, and beyond, they were eagerly welcomed into consumer products because women make most of the consumer products decisions. They were eagerly brought into healthcare because women make up the majority of healthcare workers, education as well, but less so in these others. So I don't think we'll see a lot of impact in those industries I just mentioned. I also think we'll see less of an impact in smaller companies. Because the primary reason that major corporations are hopping on the bandwagon and canceling or scaling back on their DEI initiatives is they're worried about reputation. Right? They're worried about their perception in the world by their customers, but even more importantly, by their shareholders, right? The people who fund the company. And then to an equal degree, they're worried about lawsuits. So once the president says DE&I initiatives are, illegal or at least unsavory, then that emboldens the employee who feels like they might have been overlooked because of a diversity candidate, and now they're emboldened to pursue a lawsuit. It also emboldens lawyers and judges, or at least influences their thought process that this is not a good policy and this policy penalizes people. So it makes those people bolder and more likely to win a lawsuit. So these are the reasons that companies, unfortunately, are saying, okay, fine, I'm going to just put this on the back burner now.
So aside from rethinking how to apply for jobs, actually, let's talk about that. Talk about that
because we hinted at it.
So for our audience now, there are going to be these shifts and changes. This is going to play out in real time. And you may be job seeking in the midst of all of this. So we have some tried and true, no matter what season we are in, ways that we come at and strategies that we tell our audience to use. And I think we should maybe turn up the volume on some of that.
I think so.
Okay, so let's talk
So
about
if you've watched anything that we've done, you know that we tell you not to use a job board to apply. You've got a 10 or 15% chance of ever getting through. That chance, if you're a woman or a career relauncher, has now been reduced. Because the very first place...
If this plays out in that way in private industry.
The very first place that DE&I is active is on the front end. So within those job board algorithms, you might get a little extra point if you are a person of color or if you are a woman. And those tools will be changed, so that's no longer going to benefit you. Now, as I said, we always tell you not to apply online anyway, but this is another reason not to. This is another reason to work your network a little harder. Because, and I just wrote an article about this that we're hoping to get published, because there is the DEI that's a mandate within a company that you have to fill these quotas, that you need to make sure these populations are represented, and that's the mandate. But you can't legislate a mindset. And so when you're networking, you want to talk to people about the mindset, their personal mindset about making sure that women have good opportunities to not only join companies, but to rejoin the workforce after they've taken time off, to advance in roles that might be more commonly held by men. But you also want to test the culture. Right? When you're networking and talking to people about companies, what's the culture like post DE&I within your organization? And you'll hear that, you'll know that. And then you'll be more aware of where am I going to be welcome? Where am I going to be supported? Where will I have an opportunity to advance? As opposed to places that are really doubling down on kind of the anti-DEI wave.
And every conversation that you're having is just that opportunity to educate the workforce, the potential hiring manager of who you are and what you offer and what you can bring back to the workforce. You want to make sure you're really prepared when you're having these conversations, because you want to set up yourself to be most successful when you're seeking a job.
And I think there needs to be a groundswell of people recognizing that DE&I in spirit is a really good thing. Right? We want our employees to look like our customers. We do better if our employees look like our customers. We better reach those customers.
It's the execution of
exactly.
We put it out there, or we enforce it.
And I do think we'll see a pendulum swing. I mean, we've gone way one way. I think we will see it level set, but maybe not for 4 years or so.
So it's always good to have a little bit of knowledge. That is a forecast of what could potentially roll out for our audience. And if you like what you heard today, you can like and subscribe. And you can also visit us at www.preparetolaunchu.com. Thanks.